And I'm just a big believer that you should be looking for people who are further down the road than you are. You should be looking for people who help you to see you have a limited view of what is possible. Everyone does, right? And so find people whose view of what's possible is a little bit, larger than yours, because it will change what you believe about what is possible. And ultimately that means it will change what you do. Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host, Geoff Welch, and I help small business owners overcome overwhelm and replace overthinking with intentional action. What is up? Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss, episode 34. I am your host and small business coach, Geoff Welch, and today we're going to be talking about one simple little habit that I promise will change your life and, as a result, your business. This may feel a little more lifey this time, but I think as a small business owner, you understand that your life and your business are intertwined. Like, those aren't really two separate things, right? And so when we get some of the life stuff right, it makes a lot of the business stuff better in some cases, right? So before we jump into that, I do want to remind you that I have a fantastic free PDF called the Anti-Overwhelm Playbook. And if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like there's a lot on your plate maybe, and you don't know where to start, you don't know how to get the ball rolling. Sometimes when there's a lot happening, instead of that meaning a lot of activity for us, it means that we sort of just come to a screeching halt and we don't know what to do. This is a great resource for you if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you need a little boost, you need some help with the overwhelm. Go to geoffwelch.com/playbook to grab your free copy of the Anti-Overwhelm Playbook today. All right. I think that I'm set here. So I got to tell you, this is the behind the scenes stuff here. I'm in this musical area, right? Under my desk, I have a space heater. And so when I come out here, many of you know, like behind that wall, this is part of a converted garage. It's a shop. So there's like wood shop on the other side of that wall. And so we keep this area fairly cool. It's detached from the house. So I've got this little space heater on under my desk. And when I come out here, a lot of times I'll turn it on and just, warm things up a little bit in this space. And invariably I hit record and then I realize that it's whirring away under the desk. So I've got to turn that off. And then I start talking and then I realize that this drum set behind me, the snare drum, the snares are turned on. That's the thing that makes them buzz. Shh. So every time I talk, I can hear it buzzing behind me, and it probably doesn't get picked up on the microphone, but I can't run that risk. So then I have to stop and go back and turn that off. I can actually hear, you probably will be surprised by this, but the cymbals on the drums, as I'm speaking, the cymbals will resonate, and I'll hear them making some very, very small cymbal noises as a result of the sound of my voice causing them to vibrate slightly. That I know won't be picked up, so I'm just going to let that go. But anyway, I've tried to start this a couple of times and have failed, but now we're going to do it. Now we're going to dive right in, okay? So I recently caught this interview, or a clip. I shouldn't say I caught the interview. It was like an hour long. I did not watch the entire thing. So that is my caveat for all of this. It's possible that after the point I'm referencing, everything went off the rails. But Kristen Bell of Frozen and many other things fame was being interviewed by Woody Harrelson and Ted Danson from Cheers, which someone of my age, I remember Cheers growing up. Some of you may be like, oh, the guy from A Good Place or The Good Place or whatever. Anyway. So they were doing this interview with her, and she was recounting how she met her husband, Dax Shepard. And the story of the meeting wasn't really the point, but that led her to talk about, they've been married a little over 10 years now, I believe, and she was just talking about how much like deeper and more thoughtful Dax Shepard was than most people would assume. I think he's played some characters that were kind of goofballs or maybe not the sharpest tools in the shed. And there may be an impression that that's kind of who he is. That's what he's like. And so she was effectively she was hyping him up. Like, she was just like genuinely like, he's such a remarkable person. Now, I don't know. I tend to have the cynical view that most celebrities are likely a little bit crazy. They seem like they might be vaguely well adjusted. I don't know. But that's my own bias, right? But it was really refreshing to hear her talk about him when he wasn't around in this positive way. And it wasn't flattery. It wasn't, and maybe she's an actress. Maybe she's just really good at making it sound real. But it struck me as being very genuine that, like, she had found somebody that she really respected and who impressed her, right? And probably I'm hearing this through the lens of a man who's like, yeah, that's all I want, right? All I want is for my wife to be impressed with me, right? I play music, and most of what I am good at, my wife could care less about. They're just not things that are important to her. And it's not that she doesn't regard them as being impressive, but she is not. Does that make sense? That you can be like, wow, that's a cool thing to be able to do. Like, it doesn't really matter to me specifically. I don't like care about it in terms of something that I have a direct interest in, but it is impressive that you can do that thing, right? So there's that, right? And so, like, the idea of my wife hyping me up to a group of people when I'm not around, that's like the greatest compliment that you could ever receive, or I could ever receive, right? Is like, holy cow, to hear her talking about me when I'm not around like that, that's just the coolest. And maybe that's already happening, right? I'm not around, so I don't even know, right? So I'd sent this to my wife and was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And it led me to think that, man, we have, it's very common in the world around us to see couples, partners dragging each other down, the old ball and chain, this kind of stuff where the people love each other, right? They really do care about one another, but the rhetoric, what they talk about with all their friends, is all the worst parts of their partner. And my wife and I certainly have an interesting dynamic because I tend to be very sarcastic, and this is probably why we were drawn to each other. And she likes the sort of like, she doesn't like mushy gushy. She doesn't like, flowery words and all this kind of stuff. She doesn't want poetry. She likes the idea of someone kind of picking at her a little bit as a way of demonstrating that they like you. And I'm sure some of you are going to tell me why that is, right? Oh, well, here's what probably happened that caused that, right? We all have these things from our childhood, from our past, that sort of color the way that we interpret affection and all sorts of stuff, right? But I tend to be fairly sarcastic. And so we have this sort of like playful give and take. And there's always this little bit of gray area where, depending on the day, the thing that you thought was sarcastic and funny might actually be hurtful, and you're sort of like treading those lines. But ultimately, I don't ever want to be perceived by others out in the world as somebody who never has anything good to say about his wife, as somebody who is constantly talking about all of the worst parts of her, right? So when we're in a group, when we go to breakfast with her family, and I make a joke about her inability to make an appointment for herself because she hates to call and make appointments. That's like her kryptonite. Like, I don't want that to be the only thing that we ever talk about, is stuff like that, right? So seeing this interview clip led me to consider how a shift from the sort of negative rhetoric to a positive rhetoric, what would that look like for us as small business owners, right? Like, how could that be applied in a similar way, right? We're not talking about our significant others, our long-term partners, our husbands, our wives. We're talking about professional acquaintances. We're talking about friends. We're talking about vendors and like all this other stuff. Like, what would this look like? And what occurs to me is, man, negativity is everywhere, right? You do not have to look far to find an opportunity to gossip about something, to talk about the worst parts of something, to really dig in on what's wrong with any given thing. And a lot of times that is a person, right? And as small business owners, we have to make judgments about the people we hire, the people that we keep on staff, and we have to deal with vendors who are difficult to deal with or who are wonderful. We have to deal with lots of different people in our worlds, some of them who are challenging, and some of them who perhaps act in ways that could make it easy for us to say, man, the next time I'm having a conversation with this person, we're going to talk about what a terrible job you did. And that's one way to go. And I think it's an easy path of least resistance. You're not going to get a lot of pushback very often when you're like, man, let me tell you about this worst thing, this terrible interaction I had with somebody. But what would it be like if our priority was to find and surround ourselves with people that we could not wait to talk up, to hype up around others, right? To partner with people, to obviously I'm sure you would love to hire people that you just couldn't say enough good things about, right? But vendors, there are all these people in our sphere that we can choose to focus on the negative parts. We can choose to indulge and keep around folks who are not measuring up, or we can say, I have a really high standard for the people that I work with, and if I don't feel like I can hype you up around somebody, if I don't feel like I can tell everybody else how great it is to work with you, that's a red flag for me, right? That's something that I really want to consider, because what I want to be able to do is create an environment, create a community of other small business owners where we don't have time to waste talking about all the negative things about people, right? That is unproductive, and we have other things that we need to be doing. I promise you, there is enough stuff for you to, you have not delegated enough things to have the free time that you need to talk badly about people, right? Like, there is more to do. So I guess one alternative would be just learn to delegate more so that you have time to talk badly about people, or let's just skip the part where we talk badly about people, and then delegating more will just get you some free time. It will just get you some, and maybe time to hype somebody up, right? So the idea that you could go to a networking event, that you could go to, someone calls you up for a reference, and you would have great things to say about the people around you because you've intentionally chosen to surround yourself with people who you make better and people who make you better. Now, I think this is a two-way street. Very much like in a marriage, like my wife and we joke that we are, the only thing we have in common is that we like each other, because we do not have a great deal of common interests. We know some couples who it's just like they want to do everything together all the time because hiking is our favorite and this is our favorite, and good for them. That's fantastic. But we don't always have interests that overlap in that same kind of way, right? But I think that we're very complementary, meaning we have differences that fill in the gaps that the other person has, right? And so instead of being the same in a lot of ways, we're different in all the right ways. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. So you and in your small business community are likely going to get a lot of enrichment if you're choosing the right people around you and you're saying, these are my core, these are my ride or dies. You likely are getting a lot of enrichment from them, and they are filling in gaps that you have, and you recognize there are weaknesses or there are areas, opportunities for growth, and they have some of the information you need. They have some of the insights, they have some of the experience that you need, and that's fantastic. But don't forget that you also have skills and experiences and all that stuff that they need from you, right? So this is not, sometimes it feels like a one-way street because you're like, I'm surrounded by 6 or 8 people who are all enriching me, and I feel like I'm getting all of this good stuff, and I'm not, what am I even giving? Well, don't forget that each one of those 6 or 8 people are getting something from you. So you have the opportunity, again, to be a part of that circle or cycle, right? Of you get, you give, you get, you give. And when you, I guess I'm convinced that the people around whom it is easy to gossip, easy to talk badly about others, are likely not going to be the people who make you better. And the people who make you better are not likely to be the kind of people with whom it will be easy to gossip and talk badly about other people, right? Like if you've got something negative to say around someone, about someone, you know you're in the right group when it's awkward to bring it up. I'm not talking about constructive feedback. I'm not talking about saying, hey, Sarah, John, Billy, I noticed that you approached this project this way, and would you like some feedback on how that could have been handled differently? That is different than being like, oh my goodness, they're so dumb, right? I can't believe they did this, right? So I'm not talking about the idea that we never need feedback that is hard to hear, or we never need feedback that is critical, but that we are like, that has a job, right? Its job is actually to help someone, to legitimately help someone, not to help someone as a guise for turning the screws on them, right? So I'm not saying it's just some sort of like rah rah, all we ever say is good stuff, but I'm saying if you are tweaked about something and you are dying to tell somebody what this idiot did, my daughter, especially when she started driving, she would come home and say, this idiot, about someone who did something in traffic. That was like her phrase. So there's a little inside baseball there. But when you are dying to start a story with this idiot, you're around the right group of people. When you're like, I don't know how I would even bring this up with these folks. Like, they're not going to appreciate this story at all because there's no redeeming quality to it, right? I think that that's a good indicator. If you feel fully comfortable talking badly about somebody around the group of people that you surround yourself with, and I've been that person at times when I've wanted to say something and have gravitated right towards the person who I know would love to hear it. And there have been times when I have been receptive to other people's, negativity, when I kind of wish that I wasn't the person who they were like, yeah, I can go to Geoff about that. And so I say all of this because not just here's how to be a good person. We're all a mess in some way. We're all working on it. None of us has this fully figured out and is like fully matured to the point of like, yeah, I never have a negative word to say about anyone. I promise that's not me. And, but it is something I aspire to. It is something that I would like to be better at, better about. You get it, right? But I do think that the implications for your life and as a result for your business are huge. I mean, just think about the difference of a life spent around people who are, with whom you spend the majority of your time, or at least a significant amount of time, talking badly about others, not doing something productive, versus the majority of your time or the majority of your life being spent around people who hype you up to other people, who you can't wait to hype up to other people, and who are creating this sort of like virtuous cycle of like, we are better together. We are better because we are encouraging one another and because we're calling each other out when necessary to say, I don't know if that's the best way to have handled that. Let's talk about it. That seems to me, while a little touchy-feely, much more relational, not practical. It doesn't have anything to do with how you document a process or the 3 best ways to delegate something to your virtual assistant. I do think the implications on your business are massive, because that kind of community absolutely changes your trajectory. Absolutely does. And I'm just a big believer that you should be looking for people who are further down the road than you are. You should be looking for people who help you to see you have a limited view of what is possible. Everyone does, right? And so find people whose view of what's possible is a little bit, larger than yours, because it will change what you believe about what is possible. And ultimately that means it will change what you do. And again, all of that will change your life and change your business for the better. So, I think in closing, just the reminder is the kind of people who are easy to gossip with are likely not the people who will make you better. And the kind of people who will make you better are likely going to be people who are not easy to gossip with. Okay? So find those people who you want to hype up. Find those people who will hype you up and who can't wait to tell somebody else, yeah, so-and-so, they're the cool work they're doing. I love it. I love to watch their progress. There are a handful of people that I am just proud of, right? Like, I look at what they're doing and it's like, I had nothing to do with it. Like, it's not like I'm a proud parent, right? I had something to do with this person's, whatever. They're just people who I know, people who I'm friends with, who I care about. And to see the work that they're doing, to see what they are, the kind of progress they're making and the things they're accomplishing and what they're building, I'm just so proud of them, right? And I want them to know that, and I want other people to know that, because I think that is just a really, really cool gift. Okay, that's it from me. Don't forget, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you need a little bit of a boost to get out from under some of the overwhelm, to get you moving in the right direction, my anti-overwhelm playbook is free at jeffwelch.com/playbook, and I hope you will grab it today. All right, go find some people that you can hype up, and do not forget, your business is not your boss.